Here's how to tie the Clove Hitch, which is one of the most useful knots to know in everyday situations. To tie it, take the end of the rope and go around the post on the right side, then go around it once again, but this time on the left side, and finally tug the end of the rope underneath this strand over here and tighten it. But also make sure to dress the knot neatly together so that there's no slack when you pull on it. It isn't the most secure hitch, but it's pretty strong and you can tie it very easily. But what's even better, you can untie it very easily when you don't need it anymore. If you want to make it more secure, you can tie another half hitch around it here in the front. Instead of a half hitch, a lot of people like to do another clove hitch on the top, but I found that the bottom clove hitch usually tends to seize up pretty badly if you do that. So here's how to tie the distal hitch. You need to start by creating a loop at the end of each cord, and it's usually done with a poacher's knot. To tie it, simply bend the rope in half and then go around the longer end 1-2 times, and then finally go through both of these turns that you just made and tighten the knot. You could theoretically use other knots for this purpose, but the poacher's knot is ideal because it creates a strong self-tightening loop. Now you should have a loop like this on each end of the cord. Put the first loop in front of the main rope and then go around it 3 times in the upwards direction. Then do a 4th turn, but this time at the bottom. And finally, tuck the second loop underneath this strand over here to secure the knot in place. And finally, clip in your carabiner through both of these loops, lock it, and make sure to tighten both of them. But before you go ahead and use it, make sure to dress it properly and make sure that none of these loops are overlapping one another. It's especially good for rappelling because even when loaded, you can pull it down very easily with your other hand. Here's how to tie the double Alpine butterfly loop. It's super useful to know because it creates 2 very strong loops in the middle of the rope, which can be used as anchor points or to tension the rope sideways. And the best part about them is that you can use each loop separately or keep them completely empty, and the knot won't unravel by itself when it's pulled. Wrap the rope around your hand 1 full turn, leaving a large gap in between them. Now do 2 additional turns downwards in between them. Now take the 2 top loops and go over and underneath the 2 bottom strands that form an X. Take out your hand and pull on the ends to finish the knot. But before using it, make sure to tighten and dress it very tightly so that the loops don't come undone when they're pulled. To learn other useful knots, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time. Here's how to tie the square knot. Start by placing both rope ends next to one another and then wrapping the second one around the first one. Now again, place both of them next to one another and wrap the right one around the left one, like this. Finish, pull both ropes while holding the rope ends, then release them and pull again. Make sure to leave the ends rather long because this knot tends to slip if pulled with a lot of force. For very simple applications, this knot is secure enough to connect to shorter ropes. If you want something more secure, you could do 2 turns around each rope instead of 1. But once tightened and put under load, it becomes pretty much a big mess that's very hard to untie. A much better solution would be to tie a figure-8 bend knot instead, which we covered in another video. To learn other Here's how to tie the Carrick bend knot. It creates a secure connection between 2 ropes. Start by creating a loop near the end of the first rope. Then go under it with the second one. Now go over, under, over, under, and finally over the last strand. The Carrick bend is finished, but you still need to secure it, and you can do it in 2 ways. The first way is by securing the ends of the rope to the standing ends with additional rope. This works very well with thick and heavy ropes, or if you want to use it for decorative purposes, because it creates a nice and symmetrical look. The other end is to keep the ends open and to tighten the knot normally. The knot will capsize and end up looking like this. This version is slightly less secure, but still very reliable. Here's how to tie a figure 8 follow-through knot, also sometimes referred to as the rewoven figure of 8 knot. Start by creating a figure 8 knot at the end of your rope. Take a rather long piece of rope, then go under, up, under, and through the final opening. The finished knot should look something like this, and it should have a rather long piece of rope at the end of it. Now take the end of the rope and go over the attachment point that you'll be using. Now you need to retrace the figure of 8 that you just made, just in the other direction. To make sure that it's tied correctly, make sure that it has 3 sets of parallel ropes on each side. It's a very strong knot that's most commonly used in climbing for attaching to the harness, but you can also use it anytime you need to create a strong connection to a fixed object. The knot tightens by itself when it's pulled, so it doesn't require a stopper knot. But a lot of people, especially climbers, like to add another double overhand stopper knot for additional safety. Here's how to tie the Prusik hitch knot. It's most commonly used in climbing to climb up a rope because as you pull it, it provides a lot of friction. But as you release it, you can freely move the knot upwards the rope. To tie this knot, you first need to get a Prusik loop, which is essentially a fixed loop which is created with a double fisherman's knot. Place the end of the loop in front of the rope and then take the other end and wrap it around the rope. Now continue wrapping it around another 2 or 3 times. Now take the end with the knot and pull it to one side. And finally, dress this knot so that in the end, it looks exactly like this. It's important to do this part because it improves the overall friction. If you pull on it and it still slides, then you can wrap it around another time. The good thing about the Prusik loop is that you can load it in both directions and it still works just as fine. Its only downside is that it will not work with frozen or wet rope. In these instances, it's better to use a mechanical Prusik. To ascend a rope using Prusik loops, you need to get 2 loops, one on top and one at the bottom. You need to attach the top one to your climbing harness and you can place your feet through the bottom one. Essentially, you need to pull up the top Prusik loop, then the bottom one, then again the first one, and by doing this, you can slowly and safely climb up a climbing rope. Here's how to tie the rolling hitch. Take the end of the rope and go around the subject. Then cross the standing end and then do another full turn around it like this. Then go around the free end like this and finally tuck it underneath itself over here. And then tighten it before using it. In the end, it should look something like this, and it should be pulled in the direction opposite to the working end. If you pull it perpendicular to the object or in the other direction, then the knot isn't as strong. It's only meant to be pulled in this direction. It's usually used in construction for lifting up heavy tools, scaffolding pipes, and timber. In this case, another half hitch is tied around the other end of the object so that when it's hanging perfectly vertical. Here's how to tie the Toeline hitch. Start by wrapping the free end around the object. Then go around the standing end twice in the direction of the loop. Now take the end and cross over and do another turn in the same direction. And finally, tuck the end underneath itself like this. It's a very simple slide and grip knot that you can use anytime you need to tension the guy lines of your tent or your tarp, or if you need to make a close hanging line. If it still slides when you pull on it, you can do 3 turns or even 4 turns before finally finishing the knot. This will make it harder to slide, but it will have much more friction. And that's how a finished Toeline hitch should look like. So here's how to tie a perfect trucker's hitch. Start by taking the end of the rope and creating a bite. Then go underneath the standing end, put this strand over this one, then go over, under, and through this last loop. In the end, you should end up with a directional figure of 8 loop. Then take the end of the rope and go through the support, through the loop that you just created, and pull on it as hard as you can. You'll be able to adjust the tension pretty tight because here you have a 3-to-1 mechanical advantage. Now pinch these two together so that the tension holds and go around and through itself to create a half hitch. And to fully secure it, do another half hitch. And that's how a finished trucker's hitch should look like. It's called the trucker's hitch because it's usually used to secure loads on trucks, trailers, and car roofs. But because of the mechanical advantage, you can also use it in situations like this, where you need to tension a rope for a hammock, a tent, or something similar. To learn other useful knots, subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.